In this week's parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha, we have the first open command to Avraham Avinu. Lech Lecha, Vayomer Adonai el Avraham, Lech Lecha me'artzecha me'moladetecha me'beit avicha el haaretz asher areka. Avraham, leave it all behind, leave your homeland, leave your birthplace, leave your father's home to the land that I'm going to show you. El haaretz asher areka. Okay, this is our Torah B'ezrat Hashem. I want to speak about this idea that I saw in Sefer Kol Demama, the Sefer by Avraham HaKohen, where he speaks about the different avot and different character traits of the avot, and he wants to contrast the concept of HaReiyah, of seeing, to the concept of Yirah, of being an Av HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, we've spoken many times in the past, a lot of times around Chanukah time, around Shavuot time, about the idea of seeing in Judaism. Seeing is believing that HaReiyah was the strongest of the Chushim. It's the strongest of the senses that we have, is what you see seems to be the most realistic. But on the other hand, we have this concept of Shmiyah, of listening, of hearing, of internalizing, of understanding, and that a lot of times that as Jews, Shmi'ah, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that our real sense should really be listening, internalizing, as opposed to just looking at the superficial outside world of Re'iyah. But says this Rav Avraham HaKohen, that Avraham Avinu's great character trait at the beginning of his life is actually not the internalizing of the Shmi'ah, but Avraham's character trait is going to be Re'iyah. B'ezrat Hashem, I'm hoping B'ezrat Hashem to record another Devar Torah in a couple of weeks when we get to Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is going to be more of the character trait of Shmi'ah, of listening. But according to Rav Avraham HaKohen, it's a nice theory he has over here. He says that Avraham, he's the Ish HaReiyah, because we're going to see, even with the very first command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem was telling Avraham, let me take you to the land that I'm going to show you. Because seeing for Avraham is a very important thing, because Avraham is the kind of guy who really understands things, and he thinks he understands things, at least on the very, very clear level. And he brings down with the famous Midrashim that discuss where did Avraham, when he was traveling around, he tried to figure out, where should I go? So this says the Midrash in Bereshit Rabbah, Parsha Lametet Siman Het, Amar Rabbi Levi, B'sha'ah shaya Avraham me'alech ba'aram na'arayim ba'aram nahor, ra'a otan ochlim v'shotim u'pochazim. So when Avraham was looking for a place to live and to be, he was walking around the Aram Na'arayim, Aram Nahor, he's in the Iran area, and he says, Ra'ah. He saw them eating, drinking, messing around. He says, you know what? I don't want to be in this land. But then it says, when he got to the area of Tzor, which is the borders of Eretz Yisrael, he sees Eretz Yisrael. They were doing what we're supposed to. If it's work time, then they're going to be working. If it's eating time, then it's going to be eating. They were just sitting around bumming around. He says, oh, this is where I want to be. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? Great. This is the land that I'm going to give you. But it all starts from Avraham seeing things. So Avraham is shown the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to see. And then also Hashem is going to reveal himself to Avraham. Vayira Hashem el Avraham. Hashem reveals himself. So this concept of vision, of seeing the land of Israel, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing himself to Avraham, that's what it's all about with Avraham. Avraham is the Ish of the Re'iyah according to the Pesukim. And the Midrashim even go further, because you know the famous Midrashim of how did Avraham come to God on his own. So one of the Midrashim speaks about the Bira Dolek. He saw this house that was on fire. And then the Midrash there says he came to a place, Vira'ah, and he saw that something was on fire. He says, Tomar she'abira zo beloman. Can it be that this exists without someone in charge of it? Hitzitz alav bal habira. The owner of the home looked down upon him. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at him. Again, hitzitz, a language of seeing, of looking. And this owner of the home, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hitzitz alav HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'amar lo ani hu ba'al ha'olam. So to speak, this mashal is saying, Hashem says, I am here. So, but this language of seeing, Avram sees, Hashem sees him. Hashem reveals himself. The concept of Avraham seeing, and Avraham is so clear in what he thinks, and that says that's the koach. Says Rav Avraham HaKohen, that's the koach of seeing. Avraham really sees, and then he uses his brain. He thinks. He studied all of nature. He saw the way cause and effect works. He says, I see there's a God in the world, and now Avraham is so confident that he's now going to take this confidence and try to change the world. That's the koach of the power of Re'iyah. And we see that Avraham comes to other conclusions when it comes to his sight. You know, when it comes to his wife, to Sarah Imenu, when they're getting close to Mitzrayim, he says, oh, I can see that you're a beautiful, beautiful woman. Now we have to be very careful. Meaning Avraham uses his eyes and he views the world, he studies the physical world, and that's how he came to his conclusion about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was all about. But as we mentioned, sight itself, while it might give Avraham this great confidence to change the world, there are limitations. There are some superficial views when it comes to actual seeing. And he brings down that Avraham had two people that lived with him, the two famous followers of Avraham who weren't 100%. We have Lot and we have Hagar. And he says when it comes to Lot also used his sight. And when Avraham says, okay, it's time for us to part ways, where should I go? So it says, he looked around and he saw the area next to Sodom and he says, oh my God, it looks so good over there. It's so fertile over there. This is going to be excellent land for Parnasah. What did he not see though? He didn't see all the evil people there, the people Ra'im v'chataim la'Hashem me'od, the evil city of Sodom. So sometimes your eyes can trick you, or your Yitzhara can use your eyes. So what did he see? He saw the Parnasah, but he didn't see what comes with it, what came with the Parnasah. All the problems, all the Chil Hashem, the Avodah Zarah, all the negativity that's going to come from that city of Sodom. Lot totally ignored it, and that's part of the problem with the eyes. The eyes don't always see what it's supposed to be seeing. It doesn't always look deeper than the superficial outside. And we know the city of Sodom was so evil. We have the Midrashim that speak about the bed of Sodom and all the terrible things that the people did over there. But from the simple Pesukim, the Pesukim say, Zakat Sodom v'Amorah Rabah. The cry out that came out of Sodom, all the evil that they did, zakat is now the sound. So on the surface, yeah, they're rich. They have these whole rule system. They created a whole court system for how to be able to carry out all of the evil we've spoken about in the past. How they try to do everything exactly according to their laws, and their laws is you can't do chesed, you have to be evil, and that was part of the rule book. But the pain and suffering that came out of it came out as a zaka. It's a language of calling out, of crying out. That's the language of shmiyah. It's the chush of shmiyah. It's the sense of sound, of hearing. That's what makes you understand that the external of Sodom is really evil. Says Avraham and Cohen, we see the exact same thing takes place with Hagar as well. Hagar's that other complicated member of Avraham's household. It says that once Hagar marries Avraham, she gets pregnant right away, and Sarai Imenu was still struggling to have a child. So what does the pasuk say? Hagar saw that she was pregnant, and she saw that Sarai Imenu was not pregnant. She's using her vision, her sight, and she knows, I must be the holy one. And then she lessened Sarai Imenu in her eyes, and she treated her so terrible. Oh, look, I'm the more holy person. So ultimately what's going to happen is Sarah is going to kick out Hagar, or actually first time Hagar is actually going to run away, and she's going to run away to a place that's ala ayin b'derech shor, which again is a language of like ayin, of seeing. That's the name of the place. And then this angel is going to reveal himself to her, say you have to go back, and she's going to say, oh, even though I didn't see you, but now I see you, I'm going to go back. And they call the place Be'er Lechai Ro'i, again a language of seeing. It's like the well where I saw the angel. And then again, the second time they're going to be kicked out when Ishmael is already going to be a little bit older and make a big balagan with Yitzchak, so they're going to kick out Ishmael again. Hashem's going to say, listen to Sarai Imenu, tell Avraham, get rid of them. And then Ishmael's going to be kicked out. They're going to be traveling in the desert. Ishmael is going to get sick, and he's not going to know what to do. How is he going to survive? And ultimately, Hashem is going to reveal again, open up their eyes and see the well. And again, it's this concept of revealing, of seeing. Although we do see a little bit that Hagar begins to get the message because she names her child Ishmael, which means that Hashem will listen, Hashem will hear. So she's beginning to understand there is a little bit of a hearing sense, but she doesn't fully get it because that second time that they were kicked out, she actually dropped off her son on the side when he was dying, not to see it, because she said, Ki amra al era b'mot yadil. She said, I don't want to see my son dying. Again, this language of Re'iyah. So Hagar is a person who also, just like Lot, doesn't fully understand that the Re'iyah, that the sight is limited. But now, Avraham Cohen is going to go on and say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after Avraham spent the majority of his life being the person of the Re'iyah, trying to change the world through his proofs of God, and what he thought was so concrete and so clear, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to begin to make a change and a whole education, chinuch, lesson to Avraham Avinu, to start building his other chush of listening, his chush of yirah, of a little bit more of bitul, and not being as confident anymore, to realize there's a bigger picture with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So says Avraham Cohen that the beginning of the change takes place in the Brit Ben Abetarim. In the Brit Ben Abetarim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself. Hayadavar Hashem Avram b'machazeh. He reveals himself in a vision. And this vision is brought down like it's like cloudy, the sun has set, the shemesh shak'ah, and it's arafel, and it's not clear. The vision is not a clear vision anymore. It's not the clarity of Re'iyah that Avraham has always had. And it says over here, Hashem starts off by says, Al tira Avraham. Avraham, don't be scared. Now says Avraham Kohen that Yirah and Re'iyah, although they're the same letters, they actually correspond to very opposite and contrasting midot. Re'iyah, things are very clear. Yirah, when you're in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you don't know what's going to happen. No, don't fear. Why does a person get scared? You're scared because you have what's called ivadaut. Things aren't clear anymore. You're not 100% anymore. That makes you nervous. What's going to be? What's going to happen? Avram right now, really for the first time, is having this lack of clarity. Now, part of this whole thing happened because Avraham is telling God, from what I see in the stars, from what I understand, I can't have any kids, and only my servant, Damesik Eliezer, he's going to be the one that's going to be able to have. I'm too old, my wife is too old, we don't have the ability to have children anymore. And based on simple sight, based on simple facts, Avraham is saying we can't have kids. So what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu do? He's going to lift them above into the Shamayim, above this physical world, and tell Avraham, things aren't the way you see things. And in this vision, which is very cloudy, which is very mysterious, Hashem is telling him there's a lot more depth to what's going on in the world. There's a lot of other angles, and I can make things change differently. And he tells Avraham, count the stars in the heavens, and that's going to be what your kids are going to be like all the stars. Now, can you count all the stars? The answer is no, there's too many stars. There's millions and millions of stars. You can't count them all. But that's part of the lesson to Avraham, that your sight is limited. You're not going to be able to get everything. But realize there's a way to fix things. And then Hashem's going to change his name to Avraham, Avhamon Goyim. And now a change takes place. A change that came out of left field. Avraham couldn't see it coming. But Hashem is telling him, no, there's different ways that I can run the world. There's different ways I can change things. You're going to have a son. And then ultimately, what do we know? We know he's going to name his son Yitzchak. What is Yitzchak? Yitzchak means to laugh. Why do you laugh? You laugh when something is absurd, when something's out of the ordinary. Avraham is understanding, oh my God, this is out of the ordinary. Look at this great miracle of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not the norm, and that's the concept of laughter. Now, the same thing is going to happen with Sarah. Sarah Imenu says, was Rabbi Miriam Cohen, she's like, Hashem creates a husband and wife so they can be the perfect match. Sarah Imenu at her core has a lot more yirah to her. She is the one with the yirah and the deen. She's the one that's more bounded. She's the one that understands deeper that Ishmael and Hagar aren't good. While on the surface, oh my God, here you have the princess of Egypt following Avraham to be the greatest convert, gets pregnant right away. Sarah Imenu can see deeper underneath what's going on. She has more of the power of listening and seeing deeper, meaning seeing through not the superficial vision on the outside. So when she hears that the Arabs tell her that she's going to have kids, so she's going to have a child, so she starts to laugh also. Why is she starting to laugh? Because it's absurd. Again, you laugh because things are absurd. But then when she's called out, and she said, Allah, what's going on over here? Why are you laughing? So she says, Lo tzachachti ki HaReiyah. She says, no. I wasn't laughing. I was in awe. I was in fear. I was nervous. So now she did laugh originally. But now when she's being called out, why did you laugh? Now at this point she understands, oh my God, no, this is probably something bigger going on over here. These probably are angels. There's probably God involved over here. Something much bigger is happening. And now she has what's called yirah. She has fear. She recognizes that there's a much bigger picture than she'd understand, and she's quiet. Also it says by Avraham, when Hashem revealed himself in that Bet he then bowed down and prostrated himself. When you bow down and prostrate, you subdue yourself to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Again, that's yirat Hashem. So you're not standing strong with your shoulders held high. You recognize that Kadosh Baruch Hu has a much bigger picture. Says Avraham Cohen that we see Hashem is going to also give him two more teaching lessons. One with the Sodom story itself. We mentioned that Sodom, Lot had made the big mistake by looking at Sodom, thinking it's so great there, but not looking deep into the people. So Avraham, he wants to see the good in all the people, but he goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What if there's 50 tzaddikim? What if there's 45 tzaddikim? And it's a very quantitative number. Oh, what if we have this very logic based and all of that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to tell you, and he quotes a Rambam here as well, that when it comes to human beings, what's going on deep down inside, this is not for you to see. This is not for you to understand. It's only a HaKadosh Baruch Hu understand what's going on in people's hearts, deep down below. So Avraham tries to make these outer arguments, and they're not going to work. So the same thing he says as a critique in Chazal. We have a Gemara, we have a Midrash that says that when Avraham made the peace treaty with Avimelech, so we said, okay, here's this Avimelech guy, he wants to make a peace treaty with me, and Avraham makes the treaty. There's a Midrash that brings down that we're actually going to have to get punished in different kinds of ways. Ayin, the Midrash, and Bereshit Rabbah, Parsha Nun Daled, Siman Daled, that we're punished in different ways, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want the Plishtim to be part of the treaties with us. In the future, Hashem's going to give us a commandment where we have to conquer the whole land of Israel. And even though Avraham, from what he saw at the current moment right now, it made sense to make a peace treaty, but in the bigger picture of the Jewish people, of inheriting the land, of conquering the land, there was a much deeper vision, a much more long-seeing vision that Avraham didn't notice, and there actually is a little bit of critique, Ayan Sham the Rashbam as well, that he shouldn't have used his eyes when dealing with Abimelech, but rather seen the bigger, deeper picture of what Am Yisrael would need in the future. But the final shi'ur that he got from Hashem, the final teaching that Avraham gets, is in the Akedat Yitzchak. So says Avraham Kohen, if we start the story of the Akedah Yitzchak, the Akedah Yitzchak is known as the hardest of the 10 nisyonot, the 10 tests that Avraham had. The Akedah is the most difficult. And it also starts off with a Lech Lecha. But this Lech Lecha is a different Lech Lecha. The first Lech Lecha was Hashem said, go to the land, Ela Aretz Asher Areka, to the land that I'm going to show you. This is the beginning of Avraham's journey where things were clear, the visions were clear, his kiruv and his chizuk and his teaching people was straight understanding. But now it's Lech Lecha, Va'aleu Sham Le'olah Lecha Darim Asher Omar Elecha. But now it's going to be, Hashem says, go to this place, and you're going to take your son, and you're going to put him up as an olah on one of the mountains that I'm going to tell you, Asher Omar Elecha. I'm not pointing out to you. You don't see it clearly. I'm just going to say to you. Now we're already using the level of hearing. And this test is very difficult because God's basically saying, I need you to go and sacrifice your son, or at least that's how he understands it. His understanding is going to be wrong. The Midrash is going to say that God's going to tell him, I wanted you to put him up, but I actually want you to sacrifice him, meaning things weren't clear. And it says, Vaisav et Einav, and when he's looking for where he's going, he picks up his eyes, Vayarta makom merachok, and he saw the place from far away. But the Chazal say Hamakom could also be a name for God. He saw Hashem far away, meaning now Avram's vision, it's not clear anymore. Now it's not, and philosophically, logically, Avram's whole life was against human sacrifice. How you can't do that, that's not okay, that's not allowed. But now all of a sudden, now Hashem is saying, okay, no, you think you understand, you think things are so clear, now let's test your yirah, let's test your awe, your fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm going to tell you to do something that seems so counter to your logic. Are you only the logic guy? Is it only with the clear vision, the clear sight that you're going to do things? But we have to actually try to say that Hashem says something that you don't fully get. Are you going to stop? And this was the biggest test of Avraham. And Baruch Hashem, Avraham passes with flying colors. And Hashem says, now I know that you fear me. Now I know that you have yirah. And now Avraham goes from being the person, the ish re'iyah, to the ish of the yirah. He's now gone from this level of saying, I don't fully understand things, I don't fully grasp things anymore. There's a much bigger picture, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu understands much better. And now Hashem says, okay, now you can look up. And then he sees the other ram, and now he's using his vision again, but now he's understanding, okay, there's different plans. I thought it was going to be my son, now I see it's the other ram. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has bigger ideas for what it's all about. Avraham reached the level of being the ish yirah. And then the Rebbe Cohen closes with the final story of Avraham buying the burial plot for Sarah. And we said, remember, Sarah originally, she was the more Yirah person, and Avraham was the Re'iyah person. But now Sarah may have passed away, but Avraham's okay because he's actually grown. He's reached this level of Yirah. And then we have the whole story of him trying to, buy from the Bnei Chet, buy from Ephron, the burial plot. And throughout the story, you have Shema'eni, Shema, you have this language of listening and hearing all throughout the story of buying of the burial plot, because Avraham had now reached this level, and the whole lesson has been taught. He's not just the person of seeing anymore, he's now the person of the Shema Yisrael, of the hearing, of the listening, of the internalizing. Avraham has gone through that whole big change in his life. So that's the story of Avraham Avinu. Comes along now this Rav Cohen, he's now going to move on. B'ezrat Hashem, in a couple of weeks, we're going to speak about Yitzchak, and we're going to come from Yitzchak, Yitzchak is going to be the exact opposite. He's going to begin his story as the Ish Yirah, and he's going to have to work on his level of Re'iyah. Shabbat Shalom.